Welcome to another episode of the Redeemed Man Podcast. I'm Nate Dewberry, and I'm joined today by my son, James Dewberry. I'm very excited about today's podcast episode, but I'd like to first start by reminding our audience, if you would, please do us a favor and or rate and review our podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. It really does help us get the word out to our audience, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you like. What you would like to see on the episode. So please share that with us. James, welcome to our show. James is a 16-year-old student at Auburn High School. He runs track and just wrapped up track season. And I'm excited to have him on for our discussion about fatherhood. It's always interesting with this month and what we're talking about and what's going on. To have my son on, so we'll find out if I'm doing a decent job or not at this whole thing called fatherhood. So we're going to do something totally different today. We have questions that have been written down, come up with by some of our team, and we are unaware of what the questions are. So we're going to read these questions and then do our best to answer those. So here we go. Question number one is, what are your top 3 memories together and why? James, what would you say our top 3 memories are?
First thing that comes to mind is probably our trip to Washington, D.C. when I was 10. That was a lot of fun.
Why was that one of your favorite memories?
I don't know. It was like we spent a lot of one-on-one time together, and so I thought it was kind of fun to just go and have fun somewhere else, like not without my sisters. And
Yeah.
So, and we don't usually get to go somewhere outside of like our local area. So that was fun. When we went to Grand Canyon, that was a lot of fun. I think it was fun seeing you like kind of amazed at all the
and then the
landmarks
third?
and stuff. The third, there's so many to choose from.
Well, I would say Glacier. That was one of our fun times. We had a moment where you and I were hiking up the side of a mountain, and it was snowing really hard, and we knew there was nobody else around on the trails, and the wind was blowing so hard that honestly we stopped and turned around and came back just because we were afraid it was going to blow us off the mountain.
Number 3.
But it was one of those moments where it was great to be together, and look forward to some more times we enjoy some outdoor adventure. And then for me as a dad, one of my favorite moments is your baptism. It's just such a special time seeing you take that step of faith, the step of obedience to follow Christ in baptism. And that was such a cool time.
Thank you.
All right, you're up for the next question.
All right, favorite book of the Bible and or verse?
So for me, my favorite book of the Bible is probably the Psalms because I think it reminds me of just David's raw emotion at times, where he shows his vulnerability, he shows his frustrations, he shows his love and just overwhelmed by the glory of God. And so that's probably one of my favorite books. And what was the other part of that?
And or verse.
Favorite verse, probably Isaiah 6:8. Just, the encounter that Isaiah has with God and understanding his unholiness, but the holiness of God, and then the call and his willingness to say, "Here I am, Lord, I'll go wherever you want me to." It's always been one of my favorite. What about you?
Favorite book of the Bible would definitely be John. I love reading about Jesus' life, and it's so different from the other 3 Gospels. I think it's really interesting. And favorite verse, I'm not really sure I have a favorite verse. It's hard because I'm learning about so many new things in my life. Yeah. So like a certain verse will stand out. Like this morning, Mansell told me a verse, from Hebrews about discipline. And so that one really stuck out to me. But
awesome. I'm thankful that you're in the Word. Next question. Name one thing you admire about each other. And it says specifically speak to their character.
For me, you've really inspired me through this too, but it's your drive to do what's right even if it is, it has bad consequences for yourself. You always want to do what the Bible says and what's is good and by God's word.
Thank you. For me, probably one of the things that your character is your just your confidence, that you believe that God can allow you to do anything, and so that's fun to watch. Fun to watch your willingness to try things that maybe you aren't good at, and take those steps and learn. So it's a lot of fun.
So my turn.
Your turn.
All right. If you could travel anywhere right now, where would you travel to?
Oh my gosh, if I could travel anywhere I wanted to right now, it would probably honestly be back to England. Today was coronation of the king, at least what I was watching today. This is going to be released later, so if you're listening, we're recording. And today the king was his coronation in England. And just remember a special time in London. I think it's a beautiful city. Love traveling around Scotland and England, and I would go back there in a heartbeat and would love to go with you and explore, check out the old castles, the history. It's just, beautiful people, beautiful country.
So England's a big place, though. So what part of England was your favorite?
Definitely London. I mean, just the city is so diverse. It's beautiful. Love the parks. Me being a horticulturalist, love all the landscaping, love all the flowers. England's weather's great. Lots of cool nighttime temperatures, usually lots of rain. So the flowers are just spectacular. What about you? Where would you go?
Right now, I'd probably go to Kenya.
Okay.
Because, with track and everything, I would love to see and meet some of the runners there and everything, because they work so hard and it's so competitive there. But I think also it's just beautiful. Like you see the mountains in Ethiopia and all the animals and stuff. So
Africa for sure, and then Kenya and Africa. Gotcha. All right. What is the greatest lesson you've learned this year? We're halfway through 2023 already. Crazy.
I think I learned a lot through track season that sometimes it's okay to fail. Like, there's always an opportunity through failure.
Yeah.
So I think I learned a lot. I failed in terms of meeting the times I wanted to run, but I met a lot of new people, specifically the freshmen, and I think God's given me an opportunity to pour into them. So
awesome. Man, that's a tough question. What have I learned so far this year? I think sometimes it's easy to feel like you're not learning a lot. You're just kind of going through the year. Wow. I think for me, I would probably say just how quick time flies. We are halfway through 2023, and it is something we often hear and hear people talk about. But the reality of it is time does escape us quickly. Brevity of life and how to maximize the moments, enjoy the times that we have, because you just never know how long you do have on this earth, but you also know that time is passing quickly. So, go for it.
Take turns identifying ways that you two are alike and ways that you are different.
So we're definitely alike in that we like to learn. We like to read, and really, I think both of us enjoy studying and learning and growing in that aspect. What about you? What do you think ways we're alike?
I think once we decide to do something, we're all the way in. Like, we don't start just to start it, we start to finish it. So
yeah, I definitely think that's probably true. I would also say that we're pretty black and white on most things. Mm-hmm. If we have conviction about something, we believe in that wholeheartedly, and we're going to stick with it.
Definitely.
What about differences?
I think first one that comes to mind is like how detail oriented you are, and then I'm a very general person, and I struggle to see details. Like, I have to work for it. So
yeah, you're definitely an I in personality, and so you're much more talkative, and you're creative, and so you can draw a picture with extreme detail, but walk in a room and not notice if the light was on or not. Like, it's just crazy sometimes, and I notice everything in a situation, so it's definitely true. I would also say that just what we talked about, like you're much more willing to try something. You're much more confident than I was at your age. Always much more hesitant, much more perfectionist. And so there was a lot of things that I didn't do because I was afraid I wouldn't do it perfect. So
I think too, I don't know if this is part of it, but I kind of think of one thing at a time. Like I can put stuff out of my head, and
yeah.
you kind of always are thinking of like everything.
Oh yeah.
So
Always thinking about 25 different things at one time. Outside of reading the Bible, what is one book you think every man should read and why? So obviously you haven't been reading that long and you are stepping into manhood, but anything that you would say that you recommend everybody should read?
this might be cheating because it's like about the Bible and it takes a lot of verses, but one that helped me a lot in terms of like understanding what it means to be a man is the book about Daniel. I can't remember who wrote it, but he's a pastor, and it just goes through the book of Daniel, specifically Daniel's life.
Yeah.
And it explains, what God was doing and how he was working throughout all of it, and just how Daniel's faith, not Daniel, David. I was saying the wrong name the whole time.
All good.
Yeah.
All good.
And just how God worked throughout his life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. King David's amazing. We just had a devotional actually on David's life that we did through the Redeemed, and it's amazing to me the way he honored Saul, the way he continued to walk out God's faithfulness, even in difficulty, and then his worship. And obviously, I love the Psalms, so love David. For me, outside of the Bible, one of the books I think is great is "Don't Waste Your Life" by John Piper. I think just a reminder that we do have this one life that we get to live. How are we going to utilize it? What is that going to look like? Are we really going to make a difference with our life? Are we going to utilize the time that we have? That's probably one of my favorite. I think everybody should read it. So.
I need to add that to my list. Okay, I think this one's for both of us. So I'll ask you your question. What was it like being a father of 3 young kids walking through a divorce? What adjustments did you have to make once you got remarried?
So, as a dad, walking through divorce is extremely hard because you know there's going to be challenges that are honestly not something you want your kids to face. And so for me, it was the difficulty of knowing, hey, my kids aren't going to have the life that I wanted them to have, and really learning to not beat myself up about that to a certain way and go, okay, God can give them an amazing life, and just because it's difficult doesn't mean that it can't be good. Some of the sacrifices, obviously, as a dad, I think there's moments, no matter what you do, no matter how you got to that place, people can look at you different as a dad that's divorced. They can question you. I remember going to schools early on and honestly feeling like I wasn't supposed to be there and how hard that was. And so there's a lot you have to press through. There's a lot you have to do that is not necessarily easy. And I don't think a lot of people understand what it's like to be a father and want to be a present father. I see why so many dads give up and go, man, this is too hard. I'm just going to not be present in my kid's life, because it really does take being very intentional. So that's probably a little bit of kind of what it was like early on. But one of the things I'm thankful for is having 3 kids, 3 different ages. It was also a lot of fun to watch you guys grow. There were special moments I had in that season, even though it was difficult. Thankful for great parents who helped when, having 3 kids and the youngest being still in diapers and learning potty training and everything. It was a lot. Having 2 daughters and a son, I couldn't have done it without my parents. So that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't remember what the rest of the question was.
What adjustments have you made getting remarried?
So, getting remarried honestly is learning to incorporate Liz. One of the things that in getting remarried, I was very aware that I wanted you guys to see her as a mom in the home, never replacing your biological mom, but being a mom when you were in the house, because I felt like it was a matter of learning that respect for her and treating her that way. And also the age you guys were when we got married, I knew it was important. So that's been something I've been very intentional with, is treating her as a mom in the home. Again, not replacing your mom, but being another mom, and especially in the setting of our home. Also, listening to her and understanding that it's different and that it comes with its own set of challenges that she has to face, and not having our own kids together, and you guys being kids by a previous marriage, what that means for her, the weight that she carries, the um, also the fact that, as being a mom, she doesn't have complete control, and there's certain things she can speak to and other things she can't. And then the fact that we've not been able to have kids, of what it's like to love and to care for kids and them not be the kids that you gave birth to. So it's been amazing to watch her love you guys and to walk it out with her.
Mm-hmm.
So, James, tell me about the adjustments that you've made walking out, with your mom and I being divorced, and, having two different homes, and then me getting remarried. What's that been like for you, and how have you adjusted to that?
I think a lot of the adjustments that have been made later after the divorce, because when it first happened, I was younger. I was only 6, so I was kind of just going with the flow, just because I didn't have my own, not authority, but independence.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand most of what was happening. But later, a lot of the adjustments I've made were, especially when y'all decided to move to Columbus, I've had to decide how to separate my life into 2 cities, which has been difficult. And only really recently I've started to really enjoy having those 2 different cities. But I think God's worked through it, and He's gave me a wider area of influence than I ever thought I could have.
Yeah.
And I'm learning so much more I don't want to say so much more than people who are living in one city, but I have such a different perspective. I'm very thankful for it. And so the adjustments, more like with church, I've had to figure out, at first I only did church in Columbus, and I've kind of had to figure out, I go to school with all these people in Auburn, so how do I tell them about Christ when I can't invite them to church?
Yeah.
And I've had to figure out, a church in Auburn that I can invite people to and go to sometimes. And that's been the hardest thing for me by far, was the separation of having all my friends in church in a different city. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm proud of you. I know it's not easy, and I know it does come with challenges, but I do think you have embraced them to the best of your ability, probably better than I could have. So, super thankful. Next question. Thank you for encouraging me to...
2 things. One I've already mentioned is to do the right thing. A lot of times I struggle when I'm in the moment with a crowd, and so I always think you inspire me to do the right thing no matter what everyone else is doing. And I think if I didn't have you in my life, I'd be very different because of that. And another one is hard work. You've really taught me to do everything in excellence, not for our own pride, but because that's what Jesus would do.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you. And, for you, I think you encourage me in just being a dad and reminding me, that it's okay. Sometimes I can make some pretty big mistakes. I think you're very gracious in that, and always gentle and loving and encouraging. So thank you.
All right. You both of us have a heart for ministry. So how can you share when you were called into ministry at a young age? What was that like?
Yeah, so for me, I was 16 at a revival service, and I was sitting near the back of the church, traditional sanctuary. We were in a revival, and the evangelist was talking about being called when he was 16. And for me, I knew that God was setting me apart for ministry at that point in time, and really wanted to go into ministry and go to Auburn first, get my degree, and then go into seminary. And that was kind of pretty clear at that point. What was crazy for me was, full circle going through a divorce, stepping away from ministry, working on my heart, working on who I was. and then being back in somewhat ministry. It's great to love and serve people. It's great to have a picture of God's goodness and grace, of the fact that he can still use me in spite of my weaknesses, in spite of the things that I've not gotten right. That's part of my story, part of the ministry he's given me, that he could restore and redeem that which was broken, that which wasn't what I wanted it to be, and believe that there's so much ahead. And so I'm super excited about what God has in store.
I think, too, coming to understand, you're talking about my confidence, like understanding what it means to try new things. It's always a good sign to me because I can see your life and how God has used what you've done, like going to Auburn before you went to seminary. Yeah. And so I always have confidence, like if God could work it out for you, of course he's going to work it out for me.
Awesome. So, thank you.
I think that's another one where you have a question for me, too.
Well, what about you? Because I know you feel called to missions. So tell us a little bit about what brought that about, and then what you see God doing.
I think I'd always gone through phases, like deciding what I wanted to do. Like when I was really little, I wanted to, study dinosaurs, and then
and you thought you were Peter Parker for a while.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man. I still kind of want to be Spider-Man, but I've given that up. But when I did 252, the internship at church, that was when I realized that if Jesus is the Lord of my life, that means, and this life is but a vapor, that means everything I do, you're talking about moments, I want everything in my life to be for the eternity.
Yeah.
And so that's how I knew I was called to ministry, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in ministry. And I struggled kind of, do I want to do worship? Do I want to be a pastor? Or do I want to be a missionary? But I think just my love of learning. And I've always wanted to travel. And so all of those things combined, I kind of had an epiphany. Like, I think God has given me all the gifts I need to be a missionary. Yeah. He's equipped me for that. Yeah. So,
well, it's exciting because one of the things for all three of the kids, for you guys, I prayed that God would use you to advance his kingdom. A verse I often prayed over you when you were little was, Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And that's still very much my prayer, that God would allow you to trust him completely, to walk out what he calls you to, and to really make much of him, so that God's kingdom, his name, would be spread among the nations, and that you guys, that we would continue to develop a legacy of a family that's heart for people who've yet to hear the truth, who've yet to yield their life to the gospel, who's yet to take steps of faith. So thank you. I'm proud of you. What's the hardest thing about being you right now?
To be completely honest, I don't think there's that much that's hard about being me, especially compared to what I know some other people have to go through.
Yeah.
I think having to live in two cities, though, that's where I struggle the most a little bit, because I can't ever have all my stuff in one place. It's hard to do things because I can't be in the same city all week.
Yeah.
Have the same friends. I'm not consistent with them. And besides that, I think for a while I struggled knowing what I wanted to do, because God had given me so many gifts. And that doesn't sound like a struggle, but I think it kind of messed with me, because I always it's hard knowing how to act when you don't know what you want to do sometimes. Yeah. So,
no, I can definitely see, living in Auburn and Columbus, about an hour in between two homes, has its challenges for sure. Being in school in Auburn, having most of your faith community here in Columbus, and the challenges that you have to navigate. But I'm proud of how you've done that, and I know that it's not easy, but you have embraced it, and you don't get bitter about it. So I'm thankful for that. Gosh, what's hard about being me right now is having 3 teenagers. It's a different phase. And then even for you, like realizing there's only 2 more years of time in the home, and then your sisters are next, and just how quickly that time has come. And that it's new challenges, a new season, a new awareness of the brevity of life, the brevity of time that we get with our kids.
What do you overthink most in your life right now?
I overthink everything too much. That is by nature one of my struggles, is overthinking. learning to take my thoughts captive and bring them in obedience to Christ has always been one of those things that is a continual thing that I'm working on. I think I've probably thought the most about other people's stuff and their lives and how I can help them, and sometimes overthinking that and not just giving it to God and going, God, here they are, here's what's going on. I surrender it to you. I give them to you. A lot of times for me, I want to fix it. I want to care for them. I want to make it all work, and I have to be careful of that. What about you? Something you're overthinking?
I'd say probably athletics and sports in general. I think I'm a little bit self-conscious about it because I didn't do sports until my freshman year. And even when I did, some people, I don't know, I did track and running, and I still was called skinny and everything. And so I struggle with that a little bit. And so now, every time I go in, I kind of equate like my social status with sports, which I know is bad, but so I've really struggled to give God sports and how people view me at school.
Gotcha. Thanks for your honesty. If this was our last weekend spending time together, what is one thing you would like me to never forget? My gosh.
It's a sad one. I just hope you never forget, like, the reason I want to do what I want to do is mostly because of you and seeing what you've done. So,
I think for me, I would want you to mostly, not forget that I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm thankful for the time that we have together, and I'm thankful for your heart for Christ, that you really do want to make a difference, and you are. And that is one of the things that makes me most proud of you.
Thank you.
What encouragement would you give a son or a father who has divorce as a part in their story? So what would you tell a young man or even a dad out there who has gone through divorce? What would you share as somebody who's watched your dad walk through it and you've experienced it and have to walk it out with parents who are divorced?
I think I'd say that God uses all the suffering we experience. And I think in our society now, too, we see a lot of divorce and a lot of people who are struggling with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know that everything happens for a reason. And that's, if you're a Christian, it's to spread and grow the kingdom of Christ. And so I think it's not having that pessimistic outlook that, this bad thing happened to me. It's having, once you get through it and once you do work through it, that all things work for good.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I think I would remind guys out there who've gone through divorce that your life's not over. It's okay. Keep being faithful, remain steadfast, keep pressing in, keep loving your kids, do the things that are hard. It will get better. And even if it doesn't, you will have done the right thing. You will have continued to do the right thing, and you will trust God, and you will see his faithfulness time and time again. And for kids who've gone through it, I think just a reminder of, like you said, like God can work things out, and we all have our junk that we have to navigate through, whether it's a divorce. And also the fact that you get to, just because it's what you grew up with doesn't mean that's the story that you will write for your life. God gets to write a new story. Right. And that story of your life can be a life of hope. It can be a life of a marriage that lasts 60, 70 years. It can be a story of redemption and restoration. And what happened in one generation does not have to continue in the next generation.
I'd like to kind of add on, speaking to like a father. Now, I know I don't have that much authority to speak on it, but listening to a sermon I heard at church this past week, and, if you're still breathing, you still have a purpose. So no matter how old you are, like Moses was 40 when he was called, and he was in the desert for 40 years. I think no matter how old you are, like, your life isn't wasted away, like you said.
Yeah, it's a good word. I mean, we have the opportunity to make a difference. We can continue to press in, and no matter where we're at, God can use us. So thankful for his redemption. James, thanks for being on the show today. I hope that you enjoyed it. It was my pleasure to have you on the show, and hopefully we'll have you back again for another episode at some point.
I enjoyed it. Love you, Dad.
Love you, buddy.